This is The Law Show on CL 650. Now back to the show.
Hey, church, baby, I'm back. And if you think I can't dance now, man, just watch my
Song is called Judge Baby, and I'm dealing with a couple of lawyers here in the studio who go to court a lot, and the notion of Judge Baby is pretty funny to both of them because that's just never going to happen. Our guests in studio, Joe Murphy, QC, and John Cameron, both with Murphy Batista, LLP, personal injury lawyers here in Vancouver, downtown on the Scotia Tower at Georgia and Granville. We're talking insurance, and so far on the program today, we've touched on homeowners and tenants insurance, life insurance, disability. We're going to take a look at travel if time permits, but by gosh, gentlemen, we can't have a conversation about insurance, especially multiple types of insurance, and not include the word fraud somewhere along the line. And I think in disability insurance, this is where you see claims, and it's on TV all the time. You see the person making the claim with the collar, and I can't move and I can't work, and so they get the private investigators in the van, and there's a guy chopping wood or building a treehouse for his kids and all of that kind of stuff. How pervasive is that, Joe, in terms of the overall picture?
Sterling, fraud exists in every type of insurance claim. The incidence, I think, is quite low. But one of the things that has to be understood is there's fraud sometimes on both sides of the table.
Oh.
So you get a person who claims he's got a sore neck or a sore back when in fact he doesn't. He claims he can't do anything when in fact he can do most things. He's just milking it. He's trying to fool everybody.
Sure.
And he wants to get money. He's fraudulent. He's a crook. On the other side of the coin is you get insurance companies that lie to people, that hide things, and I think that's fraud too. And I'll give you an example. When someone goes into ICBC after an accident and they're injured, they're required by the adjuster to sign a form so that that adjuster can get a report from that person's doctor. And they in the normal course of events, get the report, and then they meet with the person and say, well, Mr. Smith, we want to settle your claim. We've got a report from your doctor, and he says you're all better, or you cleared up within 6 months. And if the person says, can I see that report? What I'm told by my clients who come in the door to see me is the adjuster said, well, I can't show you that report.
Oh.
Well, Sterling, that's not true.
Right. Okay.
Firstly, it's not true that they had to sign any form. And secondly, it's not true that they can't see the report. So I regard that it's the same kind of dishonesty or fraud of the people who are out to cheat the system.
Okay.
So it exists. Fortunately, it's quite rare. People think that after an accident, people love to sit at home and not work. I've yet to meet someone who enjoys sitting at home doing nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Are they there? There's some of them there. But is it really common? I did a case where ICBC called a witness. I forget which department he said, and he said, we believe that 15% of what we pay out is fraudulent. And that works out, Sterling, to $600 million a year. So I said to him, what has ICBC done to look at this? What studies have been done? Well, we haven't done any studies, he said.
Okay.
And I said, well, what studies are planned? Because this is $600 million a year.
Yeah.
He said, well, we haven't got anything planned. And I said, well, given your evidence that you've told this court about this cost of $600 million a year, what have you told ICBC needs to be done so we can identify it and reduce it? And he said, well, I haven't. And then I said, sir, you've just made up these numbers, haven't you? And he said, well, the Insurance Bureau of Canada says 15% is sort of the fraud incidents in insurance claims. And I said, but you haven't thought it worthwhile to look at it, have you? Well, so there it is. It's there. It's a problem. I'm glad ICBC roots out people who are making phony claims.
John said
and
the same
identifies
thing.
them.
Yeah, John, you said the same thing.
Those people are a problem for the system for everyone, including the people with legitimate injuries and legitimate claims.
Well, if nothing else, John, the fraudsters end up, we all pay for it.
Yes.
Because with those fraudulent claims, that adds to that stack of money that you were talking about just a minute ago.
Yes.
And, that ultimately will be resolved, John, with higher premiums for all of us.
And also, it's unfortunate because it taints the honest, injured people who can't understand and often will say to me when I'm helping them in their case, and this includes, I'm a former police officer myself, so I have no sympathy for fraudsters, but I'll have police clients or stoics that are actually injured who come and see me and say, well, my ICBC adjuster said I can't get any compensation because the damage to my car wasn't enough, but I actually am hurt and my back's bugging me. And I know they're telling me the truth and trust these guys, and they can't understand why ICBC looks at them that way. And I said, it's nothing personal.
No.
They feel, if you feel that 15% of the people are scamming you, you're going to look at everyone coming through the door as a potential scammer.
Exactly.
So that's the unfortunate part. And I'm glad, and I agree with Mr. Murphy, I'm glad ICBC roots out the scammers, and they should understand insurance scamming is a criminal offense. It's a fraud, and it's serious.
Yeah. Not a lot of time left here, gentlemen, but on the matter of travel insurance, let's boil it down, because here we are. It's traveling time. It's that time to. And Joe, recommendation number one, never leave British Columbia without travel insurance, right?
Especially if you're traveling to the United States.
What about to Ontario?
I think it's a good idea to have. I buy an annual travel insurance policy that covers me wherever I go.
Okay.
For trips up to 30 days in length. I like not to have to worry about what the costs will be. The costs aren't necessarily less in Canada. When you get out of BC, the costs can be the equivalent to the U.S. costs.
Okay.
I had a client from Australia terribly injured in British Columbia. She was at VGH for a month and required a lot of treatment. Her hospital bill was $600,000.
Wow.
In VGH. It's a good idea, but it's like any other insurance. You got to make sure the policy you have covers what you need, and you got to make sure that you, in applying for the policy, disclose anything that you're asked about. So we're back down to that clipboard and
the multiple questions.
The multiple questions, because travel insurers generally don't cover anything that's a pre-existing problem.
I was just going to say it's the pre-existing. This is pre-existing conditions, isn't it, John? This is where they really get you.
Yeah. And you don't want to run into problems if you go somewhere and have a big medical bill. You don't want to run into a problem with your travel insurer saying you didn't disclose this.
So once again, John, full disclosure, or you're hooped.
That's right. It's the full Monty is what you have to do. Not you personally.
On paper, of course.
On paper.
No, but that the idea is beyond full disclosure, any other sort of urgent tips as we look to, I'm going to buzz off on a couple of weeks vacation. I don't, like you, have a blanket. So every time I leave, I go to BCAA or somebody like that and buy a 2-week policy. Or if I'm going to a ball game, if I go to a Mariners game, I'm buying insurance before I head down to Safeco Field.
It's an excellent idea.
So I just do it automatically.
I would say go to a good insurance broker and have them tell you, here are the coverages or policies, here are the costs, and here's the one that's best suited for you. And of course it's saying what it offers and what I want to pay. But it's just a very good idea. Credit cards offer travel insurance as part of the coverage you get through them.
Right.
But unless you read the small print, you don't really understand what that coverage is.
So additional coverage, and it's so cheap. It really is quite inexpensive, relatively speaking, compared to a $600,000 hospital bill. Maybe $20 for 2 weeks in the States. Not a bad trade-off.
The insurance company in that case, Sterling, spent $250,000 shipping my client from Vancouver at home to Perth, because as soon as they got her home, the coverage ends. The payments end, and they spent $250,000 doing that.
Wow. Interesting show, gentlemen. We really covered a lot of ground today, and I'm very grateful for your time. John, good to see you back out at the shop here. And Mr. Murphy, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. It's always a real treat, Joe.
Thank you, Sterling.
Murphy Batista, LLP, at 650 West Georgia in downtown Vancouver. Check him out online. Contacts for John and Joe and all of the staff and all of the team are at murphybatista.com. See you next time here on CIL 650's Law Show.